As a part of our new Cornell Cooperative Extension Marine Program's digital education program, we have started a new video and audio podcast series called Cornell Marine's Digital Learning Podcast. This is our second show, and if you have not seen our first show, check it out. We focused on the world of alewives, an important fish spawning in our local freshwater streams right now. My name is Rory MacNish, and I am CCE Marine Program's Media Specialist. This week's show, we're going to focus on a local shellfish that I love to eat. You guessed it, it's clams. Let's see if we can try to get my co-host, Mr. C, on the air. Hey, Mr. C, are you there? Where are you?
I'm in the kitchen, Rory.
What are you doing in the kitchen?
I'm making clam chowder.
Listen, we have a show to produce. What's going on?
I know, I'm almost done. Give me 2 minutes. I want to throw this in the pan.
Well, what is this, stemming from the conversation we had last week about clam chowder?
Yeah, we talked about clam chowder in Gloucester, so I'm making some clam chowder.
Hey, aren't you missing something?
No, why?
I don't see any clams.
Oh, yeah, I forgot the clams.
No, not. Oh, come on, really? You didn't go out and go clamming yourself? Canned clams?
That's all I could do today, Rory.
I got to admit that my recipe calls for some canned clams, but I'll have to go into that later. Anyway, why don't you get yourself back up to your office and we can start this podcast.
Okay, just give me 2 minutes to throw this in the pot.
All right. Well, I'll cut. So, Mark, didn't you tell me off the air last week when we were talking about Gloucester that you learned how to make clam chowder in Gloucester?
Yeah, that's right, Rory. Well, when I lived in Gloucester for 2 summers, we lived in this old place called the Fairview Inn.
Okay.
This inn, it was all wood. I think it had to have been over 100 years old. It was sort of near the Inner Harbor.
Okay.
And this place actually didn't have any heat, so it was just a summer residence. So in the wind, this place rocked, and I mean rocked. Mm-hmm. Some pretty good winds in Gloucester off the water. Anyway, it was called the Fairview Inn, so we had this saying, it's not a bad view, it's not a good view, it's just a fair view. Anyway, this old fishing captain shared his recipe with me.
Well, I got my recipe from my brother-in-law, who was a chef in Gloucester.
Really?
So I think maybe we have the same recipe probably. I mean, it doesn't vary much up there. Let me tell you, it's excellent, but if you're eating New England clam chowder, you're eating a certain type of clam chowder, and that's it. So
lots of butter.
Oh yeah.
All right, Rory, you said you like to eat clams.
Yes, I do.
I'm going to give you 10 seconds.
All right.
Let's see how many ways that you can tell me how to prepare clams.
All right, ready?
Yep, go.
Clams on the half shell, clams casino, clam chowder, clam linguine, raw clams, fried clams, steamed clams, stuffed clams. What else?
Time's up.
All right.
Hey, that's not bad. You did a good job. You're making me hungry. All right. Well, I guess
I made clam chowder last night, so
yeah.
I had it for lunch today.
Oh, good.
Yep.
All right. Well, I guess you certainly like to eat clams.
I do.
Well, that's a lot of ways to prepare a clam. You think about it. Pretty impressive. So think of it this way. How many ways are there to prepare carrots?
Raw and cooked.
Yeah, that's about it. Anyway, well, actually, people have been eating clams for a long time. The local Native Americans on the East Coast and the West Coast, they used to eat lots of clams and actually oysters as well. And they create these huge piles of their shells. And we find them today. They're called middens.
Mittens?
No, not mittens. Middens. M-I-D-D-E-N-S.
Okay. All right.
Guess what?
What?
I'm actually starting my own midden pile in my backyard.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
Well, I grew up with a shell driveway, and most of my neighbors and most of the people on the east end of Long Island had shell driveways because there was so many shells,
Mm-hmm.
But I ate a lot of clams, not shells, clams.
So in your driveway of all the shells, how many did you eat? 10%, 20%?
20.
Okay. Anyway, I don't even have clams to put in my driveway. So I just throw them in my compost pile.
All right. Well, let's get on to today's topic.
Sure.
The Cornell Marine Program is a brand new shellfish hatchery producing millions and millions of clams. So I was thinking, let's see if we can get Josh to join us to tell us what is going on over there. He's creating a vlog and everything, and he's one of our coworkers that works over there. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's a great idea, Rory. Sounds good to me.
Listen, before we get going, though, I got to ask you a couple questions.
Okay, hit it.
All right. What's a clam?
That's a very interesting question. What is a clam? Well, clams are actually classified in a group of animals that are called mollusks.
Mm-hmm.
And mollusks are soft-bodied invertebrates, which means they don't have a bone or backbone inside their body. But mollusks do have a shell, right?
Yep.
So obviously you think of a shelled animal. We talk about oysters, our local famous peconic bay scallops, mussels, and also they include snails.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Rory, have you ever eaten any snails?
Heck no, I'm a chowder man.
Anyway, clams are actually bivalves, which means they have two shells. They're hooked together like a hinge.
Okay.
Other animals that people may not think of as being mollusks are actually octopus and squid. You know, they're soft-bodied, but you think, well, they don't really have a shell. But a squid actually has a small little, very thin shell inside their body. It's actually called a pen.
All right. Well, let's before we get too deep into it, let's see if Josh is around. Okay.
Yeah.
Josh,
great.
Around?
Hey, what's up, guys?
Hey, Josh.
Good morning.
How you doing?
Good. How are you? Thank you for having me on today.
No problem. Hey, Josh, what is hanging on the wall behind you?
So I have a fishing problem. So when I'm not working, I'm fishing. So I try to get organized this year. It never, ever stays organized. But, so these are some of my many, 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 many lures.
Whoa.
Oh, my. You got them hanging from the ceiling.
Yeah, I ran out of wall space. So, trying to separate everything as best I can. We'll see if it stays as organized. It probably won't.
Yeah. So what is your favorite fish to try to catch?
Striped bass and bluefish are probably my favorite too.
Okay, great.
To target at least.
So what's the biggest striper you ever caught?
She was 38.5 inches. So put her roughly at about 23, 24 pounds.
Wow. Nice.
Yeah, it's a good fish.
Great.
Cool. All right, Josh, we got you in here today because we wanted to talk about the Long Island Shellfish Restoration Project.
Yeah.
Can you give us
talk about it.
An idea of what that is and a quick synopsis of that?
Yeah. So the Long Island Shellfish Restoration Project, it was an initiative that was started by Governor Cuomo just to help restore shellfish populations throughout Long Island. So there was roughly $10 million that we got, roughly 5.2 of that 10 million to go into shellfish restoration and enhancement. So our job there, just very quickly, is to pretty much produce and place out hundreds of millions of shellfish into different sanctuary sites found on the island.
Oh, cool. Now, what's your role? What do you do there?
So I'm the algae production specialist for the project. So I grow all the food that we use to feed our little shellfish babies.
Josh, what do clams feed on?
Clams feed on mostly plankton, and that plankton could be either microscopic plants called phytoplankton or microscopic animals called zooplankton, and it's going to depend on the size of the animal. So the smaller they are, they're going to feed on mostly microscopic plants, and when they get bigger, it's kind of a mix of both of them. But they're finicky. It's kind of amazing, actually, when you think about it. You don't think of a clam being, finicky and picky, but they're able to actually select different particles they want to eat, and they'll expel things that they don't eat. And I've seen it firsthand, and it's absolutely insane.
Wow. Hey, Rory, don't you have some video you want to show us?
Well, I have. There's a really cool looking. I'm going to screen share with you guys.
Sure.
I'm going to share this. It's called a bioreactor. Wait a minute now. There we go. There it is.
There it is.
Can you see it?
Yeah, there it is.
Josh, what the heck is this?
Well, it's my new spaceship that I'm going to go to Mars. But nah, just kidding. So we have a couple different algae growing systems that we use to feed our babies. So these are kind of the Ferraris of the algae growing world, so to say. So these machines control automatically all the different parameters that go into the algae production, and they produce a very, very nice, high-quality culture that we could use to feed all of our juvenile shellfish before they go into the outside systems.
So, Josh, I got a question.
Yeah.
When you're growing the algae in these bioreactors, like what do the algae feed on? Do you have to give them like fertilizer or something?
Yeah, yep. So we'll put clean seawater in the bioreactors because we want to filter everything down really small because everything eats algae. So we want to make sure that there's only algae in the tank. And so, yeah, there's some nutrients that are found in the water we put in there. But in order to really, really bump them up and make everything grow, we'll put pretty much a liquid miracle grow, into the seawater solution. So the algae stays really happy and there's no nutrient deficiencies and they, get really nice and dense and multiply really well.
So, Josh, there's like colors there, like purple,
Yep.
or what are the colors for?
So the different lights that are on the bioreactors are different light spectrums that have been through the company that we bought the algae from through years of research. Those blues and reds are like the perfect spectrum, so they say, for algae growth. And just comparatively to the other systems that we have, the lights do a really fantastic job of growing some really nice, high quality algae. So they're definitely onto something there.
Okay. So algae, obviously you're saying they need sunlight to grow normally in the water. So they're producing their sugars by photosynthesis, right?
Exactly.
Is that correct?
Yep, exactly. So they're kind of like aquatic plants. It's, there's obviously differences in there, but they're doing the same process pretty much as the plants that we all know and love that produce the oxygen. What's kind of really amazing is most of the oxygen that we find on Earth is actually produced by algae and not trees. But trees are very important too. Trees are extremely important for other reasons in addition to.
Right. Yeah, one thing I noticed, obviously in the winter months, being around by the water is like really clear.
Yep.
And if I drop something off the dock, the winter is the time I want to try to find it. And then in the spring, the water gets a greenish color. In the summer, it's really green and it's harder to see in depth to the bottom. Is that normal?
Yeah, it's very normal, especially with northern waters. So the waters that we find, especially around the island, are super productive. And what we mean by productive is there's a lot of algae growth. So yes, there's some algae that are found in the winter months, but everything really thrives when everything starts to heat up. So once the waters start to heat up, the algae kind of will wake back up and you'll get different algae blooms during certain times of the year. And also when the water warms up, you'll get a little more nutrient cycling and all the goodies that go into algae growth.
I want to show you some microscope stuff. All right. Can you guys see that?
Yeah. Hi, babies.
There's your babies there.
Yeah.
So what are we looking at?
So these are 15-day-old clams, and they kind of look like a little mini baby clam, right? So it's pretty cool to see like them actually look like a clam because when they're first born, they kind of don't really look like a clam. They kind of look like a really big bug on top of a pond. It's actually pretty wild to see that. But eventually, they'll go through a metamorphosis process and develop that foot that you can kind of see. So these are clams that have successfully undergone that metamorphosis process, and now they're kind of crawling around because they're looking for some sand to burrow into. But obviously, in the hatchery,
there's the foot. I've got my cursor on that, right?
Yep. So cool. You can see them crawling around. They're looking for sand, and they'll use that foot to kind of prop themselves like upright and boop, just dig themselves in. And so once they dig into the sand, theoretically, as long as everything goes okay, and a little hungry crab doesn't come and eat them, or any other predator at that size, they should.
I'm going to show. I'm bringing this back in. It's going to be a little.
Yeah.
I got a special thing for you.
Ooh,
this is what they do. Look at this, Josh.
Yep.
Yeah. That's
Check
amazing.
Yeah, that's unbelievable.
Josh, what are those little round ball things that are going by this clam?
So it looks like it's little algae cells from this picture. So, I kind of mentioned before, our clams can be kind of picky with the particles that they inhale and exhale. So you can kind of see that with the video where they're intaking the algae cells that are there. They're churning it, they're selecting it, spitting out what they don't want, and then the food is going through
into
the digestive system and going into their gut. And what's kind of really cool is if you look at larval clams under a microscope, which, Rory, I don't know if you want to pop back really quick to the previous video of the clams crawling around.
Sure. This is amazing, though. That's incredible.
It's unbelievable. So you see kind of a dark spot At the very
Right here?
clam. Yeah, that's all food. That's all algae within there.
No kidding. Okay.
Really?
So if you're having, issues where the clams aren't eaten, that entire shell will be pretty much see-through. So we can kind of tell also how happy and full our clams are when we look at them under the microscope. So if you see that nice dark spot, that is good.
Yeah,
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's
I didn't
cool.
know that.
Very cool. So, all right, I'm back with you guys again. So amazing stuff. I mean, it's crazy, like what these little guys do, right? How many clams do you guys? I think you mentioned it in the beginning. How many clams do you guys hope to produce?
So with this project, we're producing both clams and oysters. So combined with everything, we're hoping to produce over 100 million.
Okay. Now, what do you do with the clams when they get older? Do you eat them all?
No, and ironically, I'm allergic to them. I can't eat them.
Oh, really?
It's so upsetting. I used to love them, and then a couple of years ago, it just nope.
Can't do it.
Can't do it. So oysters, scallops, everything else.
I'll eat your share, Josh.
You can add any clam,
All right.
no problem. I'll send them your way. Maybe with the quarantine, I can mail them to you.
So what do you really do with them then?
So they're going to go out to different sanctuary sites. So we'll grow them in protective gear until they'll reach around 20 to 25 millimeters. So at that size, which is almost like the size of a quarter, when we place them out into the different sanctuary sites, it will be big enough where any predators that might want to eat them, they'll be big enough that they'll be able to not really fend off, but bury themselves in and, not be as much of an easy target. So if I'm a crab and I'm rolling around on the bottom and I'm looking for clams to eat, I'm going to pick something that's a little smaller because I can just crush a shell really easily, slurp it all up. But, think about it. You don't really see like a blue claw crab really trying to go after a big chowder clam, right? So
right.
I mean, and that's kind of the basic rule in any ecosystem, right? The bigger you are, the less predators you have.
Mm-hmm.
So to give them the best shot, like I said before, we try to grow them as big as we can within a growing season or two growing season, and then get them out in the water.
So you're growing all these shellfish, clams you mentioned, and oysters. When you put them out, why are you putting them out into the sanctuary, as you call them? What's the purpose of that?
So the purpose of the sanctuary sites is they're in key areas where shellfish populations have been diminished. So the idea is that these sanctuary sites are going to serve as, a basis for the clams and a nice protected area for the clam to survive. The clams that survive will eventually spawn and reproduce, and hopefully we get nice little, transects of clams that spread out throughout the entire waterway from that sanctuary site. And then in addition to that, what's really interesting about these sites is they are closed waters technically. And what's closed waters? They're waters that are closed to shellfish harvesting. So the idea is also too, the clams are going to go into these sites and clean the water that are in these closed waters. And who knows, maybe if everything goes right, the waters will remain open again. Not that we want to harvest in sanctuary sites, but that clean water from that sanctuary site will, spread on. And hopefully we'll start to see clean water starting from there and then kind of branch out from there. So
So basically you're saying, Josh, these clams, really their main purpose is to help with water quality?
Yep, exactly.
Okay.
And that's really the main reason why the governor wants to, pretty much start this initiative to try to, one, restore shellfish populations on the island, and two, clean up, the water around the island. Yeah, a lot of it's still pretty clean, but there's some areas that, can definitely use some work, and I'm sure we all know that.
One of the things to really help improve water quality is clams and shellfish can actually take nitrogen out of the water. Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct.
Okay.
And so the less nitrogen in the water, the less potential harmful algae blooms we may have. In saltwater systems, the driving force to all production is nitrogen. So the more nitrogen you have, the more algae you're going to have. And unfortunately, there's good and bad algae, right? And unfortunately, it so happens to be that the bad algae likes to outcompete the good algae for nutrients.
So you're talking about the algae blooms we've had recently, like we had the brown tide blooms, and now there's been some red tide blooms as well recently, or mahogany tide, right?
Yep. There's some fantastic work being done, by us as well as other hatcheries and municipalities and other people throughout the island try to correct everything. And
well, Josh, I'm impressed, man. It's quite an undertaking and a responsibility you guys have been doing at the hatchery, keeping millions and millions of clams alive. That's incredible.
Yeah, and our crew is absolutely fantastic too. I'm so lucky to be a part of such an amazing team.
Thanks for coming on the show, Josh.
Yeah,
and hopefully you catch a few big stripers this year.
I hope so. I've been trying already, but so far it's been cold. I've been catching a cold.
It's early in the season.
It is still really early, and I almost forget that with how warm it's been.
Well, cool. And I just want to let everybody know that, about your vlog that you've been producing too, because I've had a little bit to do with it because you sent them to me and then I brand them and put them out there, and they're very good. So everybody keep their eye on that. And, we'll have to have you back on our blog,
Absolutely.
We're just having a lot of fun here, and but thanks again. So we'll catch up with you again. All right.
Fantastic. Thank you for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
This podcast is a part of our digital learning initiative here at Cornell Cooperative Extension Marine Program. Next week, we'll be learning about an amazing fish. It's actually one of the slowest swimming fish in the world, and that is the seahorse. If you want more information and more materials, please go to our website, www.ccesuffolk.org/marine. Look for our digital education initiative link on the lower left part of the page. As I looked yesterday, there's more references to the digital learning page as well. So if you go there, you'll definitely see it. Now, we've been putting together some teacher and student resources, art initiatives, quizzes, and some really good and informative videos. So see you next time on Cornell Marine's Digital Learning Podcast.